Did you know that out of all these non-Rumble Royal Rumble pay-per-view matches, it's so weird. I don't have a good title for what to call these type of matches. Undercard matches, we'll just call it that. Hulk Hogan nor Stone Cold Steve Austin ever had a non-Rumble match on the Royal Rumble pay-per-view. Two of
Wow.
the biggest stars in pro wrestling history. They
Crazy.
only ever competed in Rumbles, never on the card themselves.
All right. What is going on out there, world? It's your boy Tommy on the spot for Watchalong Wrestling. Hopefully everyone is doing well and staying safe. Welcome back to your sort of live journal here in the world of a lifelong wrestling fan. And as always here, I'm excited to be back with my main man, Alex, from the Talking Taker podcast. Today we are going to be breaking down all things Royal Rumble, but not like we did last time. Instead, today we're going to be looking at the matches beyond the Royal Rumble, the non-Rumble matches, and our favorites of those as we look back at the Royal Rumble history. Alex, how are you doing today?
I'm doing excellent. I appreciate you letting me join you here on the Watchalong Wrestling YouTube channel and doing a little bit of a simulcast here on the Talking Taker podcast channel. So if you're listening to this audio wise, or you can listen to this on the Talking Taker audio channel, you can watch it on the Watchalong Wrestling channel. So fun little experiment here. And Tommy, yeah, like you said, last year we did the top 10 Royal Rumble matches themselves. This year, we're going to do the top 10 non-Rumble matches. As you know, the Royal Rumble is all about the numbers, as the video tells us every year. And I did the research. Apparently, I may be off one or two. Maybe I counted too fast, but I think I got this exactly. There have been 150 non-Rumble matches on the Rumble pay-per-views throughout the years. Exactly 150. So we're going to see if either of our lists contain the one Mountain Dew Pitch Black match in Royal Rumble history. We will find out.
It's so funny. I was recording with my buddy Steve earlier, and we were talking about that Pitch Black match as well. And I had a party last year where I brought everyone over and we brought Mountain Dew Pitch Black and everyone tried it. And I have such fond memories of that party, but I will not allow that to cloud my judgment here coming up with our list. But that is crazy. 150 non-Rumble matches. I'm glad you were able to figure that out. And yeah, if you've not ever checked out Alex's podcast, Talking Taker, I strongly recommend you do so. I'm excited to be doing a Watchalong Wrestling video here in podcast form. Initially, when I launched the channel, that was the goal, was I was going to make it more of a podcast, but I felt like kind of with a one-man show, it's a little more conducive to video format. But this is great. I'm happy to be on the podcast, and you guys do a really great job. Have you guys just did a watch along of the Royal Rumble 1999 match? Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah, that was our January episode. So everybody go check that out on the Talking Taker channel. We also have our YouTube channel where we do the video versions of our podcast. So yeah, Royal Rumble 99, and obviously Undertaker not in the Royal Rumble 1999, but we've been doing Talking Taker so long, we got to dip into some other Royal Rumble matches. We always do a Royal Rumble watch along in January, and he does pop up in that Rumble, famously abducting Mabel and turning him into Viscera in that Royal Rumble. But that whole pay-per-view or that match especially is just kind of a crazy attitude era hodgepodge. Not necessarily my favorite Royal Rumble match, but it's a fun one to go back and watch and see all the crazy gimmicks. And I know you gave some comments. You specified a few moments in that match that are really, really fun, even if the match itself is kind of a mess.
Yeah, I think for me, just seeing how over every single person in the ring is. You got the oddities coming out, the whole crowd starts doing the whole forth. You have the Brood coming out, and everyone's bobbing back and forth, and it's like that's such it speaks to how over everyone was during the Attitude Era, and what a fun time it was to be a fan. And for me, I think it was the first time where I was really like behind the heel. Like I was like, I want to see who's going to be the person to collect that bounty on Stone Cold. And I love, like, Shane McMahon, he was immediately my favorite. As soon as I saw him, I just thought he was the coolest guy. And so he's helping Vince McMahon and do the whole like training against Austin there. So when he got the win, like I was not expecting it. And so for me, I was really excited to see him back. And I was also excited to see Mabel because, to the best of my knowledge, he kind of disappears in 96, and then you
Right.
don't hear of him. Like, he's not in WCW. He's nowhere to be found. So for him to be back, it was like, whoa, what, Mabel, that's pretty cool.
He was not the third man in the NWO, as Dave Meltzer speculated, famously. But yeah, he did show up in the Ministry of Darkness. And, 99 has a pretty famous non-Rumble match on that show with The Rock and Mankind. Be interested to see if that pops up on either of our top 10s.
Very true. Definitely famous match. One of the matches that is featured so heavily in the Beyond the Mat documentary as well. But when you're thinking of these non-Rumble matches, what were some of the things that you thought of and putting them onto your list? Did you just go, these are my favorite matches, or what are some of the factors that you put into them?
Well, whenever you suggested this, I think maybe we brainstormed it last year or mentioned it offhand, and then we brought it up a couple times and decided we were going to do it. I thought it's a great subject because I don't know if I've ever even seen like people do a countdown like this or talk about it. You just don't. Everyone counts down the top Rumbles, but you don't talk about the undercard matches and stuff like that. So it was an interesting thought because they get forgotten a lot of times, but there are some real classics that happen on there. So for me, I was telling you a little bit earlier, I had 6 or 7 of them that came to mind just like right off the bat. And I was like, okay, those are definitely in my top 10. They just like have stuck with me and I can think back to them easily. And then I went through all 34 35 Royal Rumble cards since 1988. I looked through all the cards and, listed out about another 15 or 20 or so matches that I thought were maybes for me. Thought about it a little bit more this week and watched back about 8 or 9 of those that I wasn't sure about or hadn't seen in a while to see what would fill those other spots. Just, looking for great wrestling, great memorable moments, really interesting stuff. There's a lot of great gimmick matches that happened on Royal Rumble, so those definitely stuck out in my mind. I think that was just my qualifications. Like, what excited me? What lasts in my memory the most from these types of matches?
Yeah, I think for me, one of the things I immediately try to do is like, let me take the being there live part out of it as best I possibly can. I'd kind of, when I did my 2023 countdown of the pay-per-views with Steve, I felt like I was leaning towards the great times we had because Alex and I went with Randy and Nick, a couple of friends, to SummerSlam in Detroit. And so immediately I was like, I got to take myself out of that. I got to take away the great times we had and focus on the actual shows. And so I started to do that with the Royal Rumbles I've been to because I've been lucky enough to go to 5 different Royal Rumble events. And I had a bunch of matches written down from those shows. And I will let you know that none of those shows have one match of my favorites on there. Some solid matches. I'm even having the 2019 shirt on here, but none of them, despite being a really solid card. I think altogether it's a great show, but I don't think like the sum of its parts is much better than each one of the specific matches when looking back.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I don't think that's a bad thing to have your personal experience impact your rankings. That it's hard to separate that. And I think that's totally fair because, everyone's going to have that different mindset going into it. But I'm surprised none of those are on there because which ones did you go to? You said 2019.
So I went to 2008, which has a very good Edge versus Rey Mysterio match. That was close to being on my list. I went to 2010, which has a very good Undertaker versus Rey Mysterio match. That was close to being on my list. Then I went to 2011, which has a solid Dolph Ziggler versus Edge match.
Yes,
that one as well. Really good match.
That's one of the ones I rewatched this week.
Really solid. Yeah, really good. I don't know why Kelly makes an appearance, but
I did not remember that until I watched it back.
Was she ever involved with Edge or the world
title? She had a world title match at one point.
Really?
I think it was like a mixed tag where she could technically win the world title or something like that on SmackDown.
Wow, that is too funny. That's crazy. And then I went to 2018 in Philadelphia. 2018, a couple of different the big matches Braun Strowman versus Kane versus Brock Lesnar. Not close to be.
Not one of your favorites. No.
Yeah, no. And then 2019 has some really strong matches. Sasha Banks versus Ronda's really good. Finn Balor versus Brock Lesnar is really good. And Becky versus Asuka almost made my list. That's a great match. But again, I just just on the outside looking in for me.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm very interested to see. I think I have like some ideas of some ones that are on your list, just knowing your wrestling fandom and hearing you talk about other things. But I'm intrigued because definitely some of the ones you just mentioned I thought might have been on there. So I could be totally wrong here. I'm excited to hear yours.
I'm very interested to hear because I wonder how much overlap we're going to have on our lists.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think traditionally, I think so for some reason we're literally the same age, but for some reason I always seem to kind of lean towards the more recent. Like I'll reminisce about how wonderful WWE in 2013 was, and nobody else is reminiscing how wonderful that year was. But I think that for some reason I always kind of lean towards some of the more recent stuff, even though I have very fond memories growing up as a fan. So it'll be interesting.
I feel like there's maybe 3. Definitely, I'll be shocked if they're not on both of our lists. And then I think everything else, I feel like it's going to be totally different. So I'm not even sure where you're going to rank these 3 that I feel like they have to be on your list. But I don't know. Maybe. We'll
I remember the last one we did where I threw in my number 2 Rumble of all time being the men's 2018. And you almost fell out of your chair. And you were like, what? And somebody who had watched it had told me they were like, the craziest part about my Rumbles, my top 10 was that he was waiting for me to say 2007. And then I just didn't say it at all. And he was like, how is it not even in your top 10? And looking back, it is a solid match. And actually a pretty good show overall, 2007. That's a solid Royal Rumble. So I might have got that one wrong. But all right. So do you want to get us started with your number 10?
I will. I wanted to mention one more just interesting factoid that I found out just real quick. Yeah. So many great stars, obviously, that we're going to talk about here. Did you know that out of all these non-Rumble Royal Rumble pay-per-view matches, it's so weird. I don't have a good title for what to call these type of matches. Undercard matches. We'll just call it that. Hulk Hogan nor Stone Cold Steve Austin ever had a non-Rumble match on the Royal Rumble pay-per-view. Wow. 2 of the biggest stars in pro wrestling history. They only ever competed in Rumbles, never on the card themselves.
It's even crazier with Austin because at that stage, it doesn't feel like he would have been in every Rumble, but he was.
He was. He was in every one he could be in. Yeah.
It's pretty nutty. Whereas like Hogan, I feel like the Rumble matches in the early stages had all the big stars. So you can kind of see it with him. There was just everybody. Like you had Hogan was even in 89 where Big John Studd wins. You have Hogan, Macho in there, every big name. So like the undercard matches were like really undercard matches. Whereas now, there's going to be 2-3 title matches and then the 2 Rumble matches themselves. So, they're kind of saving some of the big stars out of that. But that's really interesting. The Austin one's crazy.
Yeah, no, I think they're the only 2 like big stars that you could say that for. But I just thought that was really surprising as I was making my list. None of those guys showed up on there because they couldn't possibly be on there for what we're doing. But
them 2 are 2 of the most synonymous names with Royal Rumble. Both have won. Hogan's
That's
won
right.
Back to back, which is very rare. Very, very few people have won a back to back. I think only 3 people have. I think it's just Shawn, Hogan, and
Austin. Yeah.
And on the most Rumbles at 3.
Yep.
So, pretty crazy.
Pretty crazy. So I just thought that was fun to mention. But I'll be happy to start us off here with my number 10. And you want to talk about like some honorable mentions at the end?
Yeah, we can do honorable at the end. Would be great. Yeah.
Yeah, because there was quite a few that like were close, but and I feel like this one's gonna surprise you as far as my ranking here. But number 10, this is another one I watched back this week, but it was one that I remembered being really fun for the time. This is pretty recent for me. This is the 2020 Royal Rumble, and I thought this match really harkened back to the Attitude Era for me, as far as a modern match goes. And this was the opening match on the card: Roman Reigns versus King Corbin in a Falls Count Anywhere match.
Very cool. That's awesome.
I loved, and I know you love King Corbin. He's one of your guys. I hate him. Can't stand him. I thought this is the best match he ever had. They fight into the crowd. They're in Phoenix, Arizona at the Diamondbacks baseball stadium there. So they have this massive crowd they fight through. The Usos get involved. The Dirty Dogs get involved. Roman tosses Corbin into a bathroom, a porta potty, and tips it over. And then there's an awesome finish where Roman spears Corbin on top of the dugout and pins him on top of the dugout. I just remember being at my house at the time watching it, having the lowest expectations, because this was Roman, like, he hadn't quite become the guy that he is now, the head of the table. He's still babyface, wearing the chest protector Roman, just kind of not doing anything. Obviously, he's facing King Corbin in the opening match. But I just remember not being into it. But by the end of it, I was like hooting and hollering, man, this was so much fun.
It is a really, I honestly hadn't even, you know what it is? I think, unfortunately, I always equate 2020 with the pandemic era. Which I thought was just really unwatchable. I just did not like the stuff. And I give him credit for trying, right? But at the end of the day, it was hard to watch. So I forget almost about this show. But this show was not a part of the pandemic era. It's actually a really strong show. I remember I went to a Royal Rumble viewing party with the Yep, I Watch Wrestling Facebook group. And went to go watch that. And I remember the people being really into this match, and kind of a similar deal where Corbin came out. I was like, enough. And by the end, everyone was jumping up off their chairs at the bar and going nuts for it. And it was really a fun watch. So I'll have to go back and watch that one. That's a really fun one.
It was such a stupid feud too. This was the dog food feud. People hated all that. But I feel like they just went out and just crushed it during the match and had a blast with it. Like I said, it harkened back to me to like a hardcore match from 1999 or something. So I really dug it.
Yeah, no, it's really that's a great shout, and I give you a lot of credit for that one. That's very, very cool. For me, number 10, I went back and forth on this one. I will just fully expose that I was very 1 minute I was thinking I was going to take the last man standing match, 2016 Royal Rumble between Dean Ambrose and Kevin Owens. It's a solid match. It's really good. Fortunately, just on the outside looking in for me, kind of gone back, and I'm going to go with Royal Rumble 2002, The Rock defending his title. Chris Jericho defending his title against The Rock. I think for me, one of the things I really appreciated about this match was actually the build up to it as well. The idea that everybody was already starting to sort of position, hey, I'm going to win the Rumble, Rock, and I'm going to go on to challenge you. And this kept building and building and building until finally Chris Jericho was like, hey, what's with all the disrespect? Like, I'm here. I'm the champion. Like, I should be the one you should be going after. Until finally The Rock has this period, like, he comes over to Jericho and he's like, The Rock does take you very serious, Chris Jericho, but I'm going to take that title. And I think recently I've been honestly doing all these different Mount Rushmores that I've been starting to do here on the channel. And I just recently did The Rock's. And I've really grown an appreciation for some of his matches. I feel like I've always been a fan of his character work and his promos, but he's had some really solid matches through the years.
Oh, yeah.
And this one here against Jericho is a really good one. And I think at the time, it really established Jericho as a solid champion. Unfortunately, they kind of destroyed the reign, just by pairing him with Stephanie and him being kind of the background foil to the Stephanie Triple H feud.
Yeah.
But this is a great match. Also where, he was sort of adjacently with those guys who eventually became the Un-Americans. So they're involved here. Lance Storm and Christian run in. They try to help. But in the end, Chris Jericho gets the big win over The Rock. And he actually included this on a Blu-ray he put out. It was called The Road is Jericho.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if you ever saw it, but he included this match on it and was talking about how it meant so much to him to finally get the win over The Rock. So I thought it was great, and watching it back, it's just a really great match.
There it is on the tape I've got here on my display.
Wow.
Royal Rumble 02.
That Rumble 02, I think, is definitely one of the best Rumble shows of all time.
It is. No, I enjoyed that one. I think that's a great match. I knew it was going to be on your list. I think I heard you talk about it before. I'm surprised it was low. It was number 10 for you.
Yeah.
It's one of the ones that was in contention for me. Like I could easily slide that in to like the number 10 or number 9 spot. Like I'll talk about some honorable mentions. Like I could just slide those in depending on the day. It just didn't quite get there for me on this one, but ask me on a different day, it could. But for all those same reasons, as a huge Jericho fan, it was awesome to see him get established, get that big win over The Rock. Those matches, they had a series of matches there in 01, 02 that were all really fun. I think I'm just bitter I wasn't at this show because it was in Atlanta in 02, and I was sad. I really, excuse me, hold on.
Did you ever think
Something
of
in my
going?
throat. Well, I was about to say we were, Travis and I would have been 15 at the time. And so
Right. Yeah.
we lived probably about 2.5 hours from Atlanta. And we couldn't drive ourselves at 15 yet. So if it was the 2003 Royal Rumble and we were 16, we could have, finagled that with our parents maybe to let us drive up there and get tickets for that one. But, our parents didn't love taking us to wrestling, especially not to Atlanta. They might take us to the house show in Augusta, but they weren't driving us to Atlanta at that time. So, if it was the 03 or the 04 Rumble, we would have been there, but 02, and I was bummed I couldn't make it because that was right after WCW died. So it was like WWE hadn't run Atlanta in a long time. So that was a big deal, but
Yeah.
Good pick.
Thank you.
I got from my number 9, you mentioned it. It was not on your list. Surprise, this one was not on your list, but it's from one of the shows you went to. It's the 2019 Royal Rumble, and I went with one of those women's matches. They're both excellent women's matches, but for me, the SmackDown women's match, Asuka and Becky Lynch for the SmackDown women's title, opened the show. Just outstanding. Like I watched it back again this week, and it was better than I remembered. Becky is running high off of the man stuff. This is like when it's really starting to peak, when she's riding that momentum, and she loses the match surprisingly, and then is going to have to run into the Royal Rumble later on to I forget whose spot she stole to get into the Rumble. Was it
Lana?
That was Lana. Okay. Yeah, okay, that's right. So she goes in there and ends up winning the Royal Rumble to get that WrestleMania title shot. But just a great showing from both of the women. Asuka, she never has a bad match, in my opinion. She always brings it, especially on pay-per-views. Yeah. So a lot of great reversals, a lot of great submissions. And again, both of these women are kind of really, especially Becky, she's like peaking and becoming the megastar that she's about to be. So it's great to see her on the rise there.
Absolutely, yeah. I can't agree with you more. I think it's kind of like when we went to the SummerSlam, and I was wearing the LA Knight shirt, and I feel like LA Knight, no matter where you went, everyone, let me talk to you, and everyone, like, his star was just so much on the rise, on the cusp. Unfortunately, I think it's fallen off a bit, but I think that with this particular show, that Royal Rumble weekend, everyone was all about the man. The man was just really starting to pick up so much steam. So when she came out and lost to Asuka, it was like, that's
right.
Like, that's weird. But at the same time, she loses clean as a sheet. So nobody's like, there's no controversy. There's nothing. She just loses. And the only sad part about WrestleMania 35 and getting that great women's title match for both belts is that Asuka has done such a great job as the SmackDown Women's Champion. She's left out almost entirely. I don't think she's on the show. And so that's really a tough spot for her because I think she was just having great matches all over the place. Even when she eventually loses the title to Charlotte, that's a really solid match as well. But they did. I mean, that people were really into Becky Lynch, and I think she was the biggest star of that weekend for sure. So that's a great match.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that one.
For me, I'm going to go to just 2 years before that, the Royal Rumble 2017. And I think it's a match that when you hear about the Royal Rumble 2017, people sometimes forget about. But it is a great match. It is Roman Reigns against Kevin Owens for the Universal Championship. And it has Chris Jericho up in the shark cage, probably the best use of the shark cage because Jericho's up there and you're thinking, at some point he's going to get down, he's going to get involved. He's pretty much just up there. Like, they really did have something to, and I'm pretty sure they had a toy too that was coming out with a shark cage. because I remember I went to WrestleMania 33, and this was all the rage, was the Jericho Shark Cage. And my wife and I actually went into the Shark Cage and did post photos and everything, which was a lot of fun. But this match is great. Roman's in there with Kevin Owens. Kevin Owens is, at this point, just on fire. These guys are both so young and so, hungry to be, that top of the card. Roman, yes, he's already main evented a couple Manias, but he's not really been accepted as the guy yet. So I think it's great. And then it has one of my favorite, I still, to this day, would totally pop if one day Braun Strowman runs in, destroys Roman Reigns, and says, "I'm not finished with you," because Braun ends up costing Roman the match. And I thought, honestly, at that point, they could have given Braun Strowman the title. He was getting so over. And I don't know why they had so many start and stops with this guy. He was, primed and ready to have a big match at WrestleMania, and they just never got anywhere with him. And it's a shame looking back, because I totally forgot he got involved at the end of this, but it's really good. It's great stuff.
Braun was like the Lex Luger of, the 2010s, 2020s, yep. Just had all the momentum, but just kept getting the rug pulled out under him. And it was so bizarre that they never went full tilt with him until it was too late. They did eventually put the title on him in the COVID era, in the Thunderdome era. And it's like a forgotten reign. And, it's not his fault necessarily, but it was just too little too late. Kept losing the big match too many times. You couldn't take him seriously anymore. But that's a good one. They've had
comparison to Luger too. I do think if Luger hung around WWE back in 95, 96, they'd eventually would have gotten to him being champion, but nowhere near.
It's too late. Yeah, you can't buy it anymore.
SummerSlam 93 for sure.
Yeah.
I don't know what they were doing.
Roman and KO, they've had 3 Royal Rumble singles matches, right? Or is it 2? Yeah, at least 2.
At least 2. They definitely had the one last year.
Because they won last year. I think they had another one.
They may have another one. Yeah, I think you're right.
I think they have a trilogy, and they're all good. But I think that's why I didn't pick any of them, because none of they all blend together in my head a little bit. But they're all always good. They're great opponents for each other. I think I might have liked the 2023 one a little bit more than this one. But they're all excellent.
Yeah, the Sammy ending too, turning on Roman finally.
Yeah.
I think I didn't like the 2023 because I remembered the night before it, Roman went on the Jimmy Fallon show, and they asked him, "So who are you fighting at the Rumble?" And he's like, "Kevin Owens." And I'm not sure why. I've beaten this guy like a drum so many times. I'm going to beat him again tomorrow. And then when he beat him again the next night, I was like, he just buried him.
Right.
That gave me some hope that maybe Roman's actually going to do the job. Nope. He just beat him again. So I think that kind of left a sour taste. And I do think that match, if you include the ending with Sammy, certainly gets the upper hand there. That's a great ending.
Yeah, if you take it all together, for sure. Okay, my number 8 is one you mentioned previously, and this is one, again, I watched it back again to make sure, but it was one that stuck in my memory for a long time. Is a last man standing match from 2016 for the Intercontinental title. Kevin Owens, we're going to talk about him again, versus Dean Ambrose. Not really, I wouldn't say a coming out party for either of these guys, because they've been there for a couple of years and been established, but still really, really fun. These guys kind of stole the show on this night, in my opinion. Again, it felt old school, a lot of great chair shots, table shots. Kevin Owens takes a wild bump, front flips off the top rope onto 2 tables on the outside, a pretty crazy bump.
Yeah.
I feel like people forget about, but it's good storytelling between these guys. Kevin Owens is in the corner just screaming "I hate you" at Ambrose, and Ambrose is "I hate you too." They're just jabbing at each other the whole match. Just both guys playing to their strengths. No blood. Probably could have been better with a little bit of blood. If this match took place in AEW, both guys would be just a bloodbath. Ambrose wanted to so bad. But still, I think a really, really fun, really underrated, almost forgotten about match for both these guys. I guess, had Ambrose had the world title yet? I think he has it later in 2016. So,
yeah, he gets it at Money in the Bank 2016, because Roman fails for whatever that was that he had the violation.
Yeah.
So that same night, Roman and Seth fight, and Dean wins the Money in the Bank and then cashes in and gets money and gets the title. And
Right.
all three members of the Shield have the title.
So so it's before either guys had a world title, but it kind of establishes them like these are going to be guys that are going to be top guys for many, many years. And, Ambrose, of course, is going to be a top guy in AEW, but Kevin Owens is still going to be a top guy in WWE many years later. And I think this match really establishes them.
100%. It's a great shout. They move so fast. They're so crisp in everything they do. They're going balls to the wall in this match. It's such a great match. And it's one of these things where, I think looking at it, it's not. I think this show is really this is the Dean Ambrose show in a way because he has this great match, wins the match against Kevin Owens, comes back both times, Rumble, and then he's in the final two with Hunter.
You're right.
Get rid of Roman, and it's down to Dean Ambrose and Hunter. So it's a really good showing for him, and it's unfortunately for Ambrose, I think once he's on that Stone Cold podcast, that's kind of the end for him. He was kind of on the rise until he's on that Austin podcast, and then everything just kind of falls apart. I don't think he ever got back there. Kevin Owens always a guy I always thought was always going to kind of be, and I love Kevin Owens. One of the nicest guys. I've had the opportunity to meet him, followed him on the Indies. I never thought he'd be a guy who would be top guy in WWE, but not only did he hold the title, he's main evented back-to-back WrestleManias. I couldn't be happier.
Great point. Yeah.
Great. Like, who'd have thought Kevin Owens would be back-to-back main events, and he'd be the guy to get Austin to come out of retirement to face him in Texas, of all places.
Heck of a career, heck of a run, and he's not over yet.
Yeah, it's pretty great. Next match here, this might just be one that I love. I don't know if this is a great match. It might not be. But for me, I'm going to go back to the Royal Rumble 2000. It is the tables match between the Hardys and the Dudleys. This match does not open the show. Taz's debut opens the show, but this match comes right after that. I think it's the greatest Royal Rumble event ever in WWE history. And for me, this is a big reason why. I will say that it starts with a horrible promo from the Hardys where Terry Runnels is trying to get them so squaring a round peg or whatever that expression is. It's Terry and the Hardys. They just do not work at all. And Terry's trying to convince them to go out, and Jeff is like, Terry, no.
Yes.
And I'm like, But they come out once they actually get in the ring and fight. It is an incredible match. It's four young guys doing whatever they can to get on the show. It's a little confusing because it's the first ever table match in WWE history, I think. At least a tag table match, maybe the first one ever. And so they have to do it consecutively. And so JR and the King are trying to figure out as they go along to see who's gone consecutive. But some of the moves they do through these tables they just obliterate the tables. Everyone remembers the incredible ending where Jeff Hardy does the Swanton Bomb. And I'll never forget, like this match and a couple others from this era were like constantly shown. If you ever went to WWF New York and ate at that restaurant, they'd be like constantly shown in the background on the big screens. So for me, it's like this show, I've watched a million times and it's so iconic. But before Jeff even goes off there, Bubba is up there with him, and Jeff tosses Bubba off, and he falls down and just like off the rafters destroys three tables, and it's like yikes! Like I don't know, it's just like brutal. And I think unfortunately because of the incredible TLC matches and triple threats they've had with Edge and Christian, this one almost gets overlooked. But it's a great match.
I agree with you 100%. I think Royal Rumble 2000 is not only one of the best Royal Rumbles, it's just one of the best WWE events ever. Like the whole card is great. It's just a great time capsule of that era. So many fun matches and moments, even if they're not all 5 stars, they're all really memorable. Like Kurt Angle and Taz, like just what a moment that was. And these guys just have a lot to prove. The Hardy Boys had their moment with that ladder match with Edge and Christian, but it's what have you done for me lately in the business? And so they're like, okay, we got another shot. And the Dudley Boys, they had just debuted a few months ago, so they're like, trying to establish themselves, trying to prove that they belong there, and so they leave it all out on the table, if you will. And excellent match, excellent choice.
And who didn't go back and watch the Miss Rumble 2000 pageant to see if Mae Young really showed her bare breasts? Or maybe it was just me. But
is that on your list? Does that count as a match?
To make the list, it wasn't an official match. Otherwise, I'm sure that would have been there. But I remember us sitting on the couch like, oh my God, did Mae They just really show Mayon's like, and I think the story is that wasn't actually.
I believe they were prosthetics. That's what I.
Yeah. But it was so gross. But at the same time, funny for the time that we were.
I mean, Terry you talk about her terrible promo. She had a great moment in that Miss Rumble contest. I give her that.
She made up for it later in the night.
She
that
did.
Is true.
Anyway, my number 7 choice is going to be a few years after that. This was one, it snuck into my top 10. I wasn't sure about it. I didn't think I liked it as much, but I was like, well, let me go back and watch it again. But it's 2 of my all-time favorite guys here. And it is, I said Ambrose and Owens should have been a bloodbath. This was a bloodbath. Triple H and Shawn Michaels from 2004, a last man standing match for the World Heavyweight title. I love their street fight from SummerSlam in 2002. They had a match on Raw a couple weeks before this one at the end of 2003. That is an excellent match. People should go check that out. And I always thought this match didn't live up to those, but man, it starts a little slow, but once they start getting into it at the end, like I said, Shawn Michaels has a gusher, just covered in blood. And then Triple H gets busted open, and you think, well, he's no way he can match Shawn Michaels. Well, he does. Yeah. It is brutal. And some great near falls. I think the last man standing match is just the unofficial match of the Royal Rumble, I guess, because I got 2 of them back to back here. And I like last man standing matches. I like the drama of them, getting up at 8 or getting up at 9. And there's a lot of great stuff in there. This one, interestingly, though, it ends in the draw. So both guys, neither guy can answer the 10 count. Don't love that finish, but, it keeps both guys strong when you realize, okay, we're going into the triple threat at WrestleMania 20. So we're coming up on that. So it gives you a reason why both of those guys need to be in that. So it works for that. It's tough for the live crowd, they really hate it on this show. But just great match. If you haven't seen this in a long time, I recommend people going back and watching it because I think it's better than I remembered, probably better than a lot of people remember.
Yeah, it's a great show. That is a really good match. I personally don't love the draw feature part of it, but I understand. But I remember at the time being like, I wonder if they're going to do something with Shawn, because it felt like, well, you got to go Hunter and Benoit, but Shawn ends up getting in the match. So it actually makes a great deal of sense there as to why they kind of had to go that way.
And I think it was the right call for that WrestleMania 20 match. I think that match is perfect, as the triple threat, and probably wouldn't have been as good just a singles match.
I agree, and I think unfortunately, and full disclosure, I'll probably say this a couple of times here on this countdown. It's never the same with Chris Benoit after what he did.
Yeah.
When he was still, I thought it was the greatest main event in WrestleMania history, especially with of him and Eddie at the end. Now it's not the same, but back then, I mean, you can't ask for anything better.
No question.
For me, number 7 on the list is going to also be a last man standing match. And I will ask you, I'll start this with a question that I actually had posed to Steve when we were talking about Royal Rumble 2008.
Okay.
Who would you say is the guy growing up that you felt, no matter what, this guy for like a year or two would give you a great match every time out?
I mean, first guy that comes to my head is Bret Hart.
Right. I think that's the guy for us. The generation below us would say John Cena's 2007. And I think it starts right here in this match, last man standing match, Royal Rumble 2007, John Cena versus the Samoan Bulldozer, Umaga, and they absolutely just amazing. I mean, you went into this match. I think this match does more for John Cena than any other. I think it does more for Cena than him tapping out Triple H at WrestleMania 22.
Whoa.
Because Cena comes out and they're done with him. They're like, no, we're over this guy. Ready to move on, but he goes a million. I mean, he's bleeding, a gusher through this, blood all over his face, and Umaga just keeps getting back up. And every time you count him out, you think he's done. He keeps getting back up. I think this match is incredible, and it's a shame. Umaga is so talented in the ring. It's a shame that unfortunately, he passed away at such a young age, because I think that he was really underrated, and I think this is probably his highlight in WWE.
Well, I agree with you. It's my number 6, so I've
Oh,
got it like right here, right after yours. Like I said, last man standing match, the unofficial match of the Royal Rumble, 3 in a row on my top 10 list here,
wow.
all included. And you're right. I mean, this was an incredible performance from Cena when he needed it. Got the fans back on his side for a little while. It was always a battle with him
Yeah.
for like '06 to 12 or 13 before everyone was just like, all right, fine. We're gonna cheer for you. You've earned it. But yeah, during this time, definitely not. I remember thinking this is one where I wouldn't have been upset if they switched the title, even if they switched it back the next month. It would have been cool to see Umaga get the win here because he was running hot. And they do give him that he's in a huge match at Mania 23. That Battle of the Billionaires match is a pretty massive spot on the card for him. So they definitely had big plans for him. I could have seen him as a short-term world champion. Like you said, it's a shame that he passed so early. I love that, he still gets honored to this day, with Solo Sikoa, still,
Yeah.
pays tribute to him and we still get to hear about him and kids can still get to learn about him. But great match. Great chemistry between these guys. Awesome finish with the ring falling apart and using the turnbuckle there with the STFU. Very innovative and creative and wild and crazy. '07 Rumbles, that's another great card, top to bottom, I feel like.
Yeah. Yeah. Great opener too. Eminem against the Hardys. Yeah. And I think the good thing about the Umaga here, one of the best uses of a manager, Armando Alejandro Estrada, is so great in this match. He's running around, everything he can to help Umaga get the win. Because remember, it was the pay-per-view before this that they unceremoniously had Umaga lose his undefeated streak to Cena. Cena rolls him up and gets a quick win. And I thought, like, this match would have meant even more if they had held off on that.
Yeah,
maybe
totally.
Umaga win the belt and had him be the undefeated champion going against Cena in the last man
Oh,
standing.
yeah.
But yeah, when Cena gets the win here, the crowd is so into him. And it's finally like, all right, we kind of respect this guy. And even though we're going to hate him for the next few years, he has our respect because we know that he's really in this for the right reasons.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Well, that's my number 6. So it's back to you for your number 6.
Sounds good. Well, I spoke a little bit about Benoit earlier. One of his matches is going to be right here for me. It's going to be the Royal Rumble 2001, Chris Benoit against Chris Jericho, Intercontinental Championship match. This is another one that falls like right into that realm of like the most insane matches happening on pretty much a monthly basis in WWE with the TLC matches. And this one fits right in. And I think it's such a unique use of the ladder in this match too, where they do like a Russian leg sweep with the ladder. Jericho does the octopus with the ladder and has this like insane submission right over the top of it. They do a deal where Benoit goes, I mean, it's crazy thinking back like how much damage this must have caused the guy. But he does a head first dive through the ropes, and Jericho clobbers him with his steel chair as he comes through the ropes. Just completely crazy, but really just an incredible match.
Oh, yeah. There are 2 Chris Benoit matches that are iconic at the Royal Rumble, and that's one of them. And I think even Jericho, he talked about in one of his books or he's talked about in podcasts or something, like he wanted to put that on one of his DVDs. And WWE was like, we can't let you do that anymore. And he was just so pissed off about it because that's one of his favorite matches of all time. And it is great. I did not include any Benoit matches on my list, but if I did, that one is one of the 2 that's on there. It is outstanding. Again, obviously for reasons why it's forgotten about and buried and not talked about anymore. But at the time, it is one of the best ladder matches to ever happen up to that point. I mean, no doubt about it. So for all those innovative spots that you just mentioned, that lion tamer or octopus, whatever you want to call it, on top of the ladder was just wild to see.
Yeah, I always thought it was a lion tamer, and then I went back and I watched it, and Jim Ross was like, octopus. I was like, octopus?
I think it's supposed to be a lion tamer. He's doing the best he can. Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's definitely like watching it back. So it's almost a little eerie. It's kind of like you go back and watch the Ultimate Warrior speech the day before he dies, and it's like, ooh, that is weird. Yeah. But this one's also like you watch it and you're like, that had to cause so much damage. Like, what is he doing?
Right.
Really. And I completely understand not including any Benoit matches. I went back and forth on it too. But I know it's definitely a tough one for sure.
Yeah, because there's, the other one that I feel like is probably going to be on your list. That one was hard for me to leave off because it belongs in there. It belongs in the top 10, no question. So we'll probably talk about it here. But my number 5, this one, maybe it's Undertaker bias. Obviously, we host Talking Taker podcast. There has got to be one on here, but I will stand by this match. And this is the oldest match that I have on my list. This is from 1998. This is the casket match between The Undertaker and Shawn Michaels for the WWF Championship. And these two guys never had a bad match with each other. They didn't have very many, but every single one of them was excellent. They would go on to be the ending of the 07 Royal Rumble, of course, with that awesome ending there, and then beginning the 08 Royal Rumble. And this one probably is the worst of their matches, because you got Hell in a Cell, you got all the WrestleMania matches, of course, but I stand by this one being excellent as well. Just all the same great chemistry, some awesome spots and moments, jumping, into the casket. Shawn obviously, injuring his back, bumping off of the casket. But they're doing some crazy stuff at the time. Again, it's a weird finish, but I think for the story that they're telling, we're trying to get to Undertaker versus Kane. I don't mind, the screwy finish with Kane coming in there and interfering, especially because it was so hot going into that show. They were pushing that Kane and Undertaker were working together. So when Kane's music hits and the lights go out, the crowd just erupts because they think they're for sure Kane is coming out there to save Undertaker, but he turns on him, puts him in the casket, lights it on fire. Yeah. So for all the storytelling, all the spectacle, I stand by this match as my number 5.
It's a great match, and I always just was so trying to figure out how the heck they pulled it off where he sets the thing on fire, because he gets in there so fast, sets it on fire.
Yeah.
There's got to be a trap door or something, and I know Bruce Pritchard would never give it away, but they do it really well because he sets it on fire, and it's like, no! But then it eventually sets up like, all right, now Taker's got to come back for revenge. So I think it's great. Unfortunately, it's also the match where Shawn lands awkwardly on his back, right? And that's kind of the of him there. I figured there'd be a couple of Undertaker matches on your list. Definitely, I thought this one would be there, though, for sure.
Well, you mentioned the Rey Mysterio one, and that one was at like the number 10 or 9 spot for me for a while, and eventually bumped it out. But that's a great. It's short. It's only like 9 or 10 minutes, but it's a great sprint between those two guys. Very fun match, but I had to bump it out. But it was close.
Yeah. Well, my number 5 here, my number 5 here, getting into my top 5, is probably one of my more controversial. I mean, I have 2 Benoit matches on my thing. That's not that controversial. But I have going to go back to the one that's the oldest one on my list, which is the Royal Rumble 1999. That's the last man standing match between Mankind and The Rock. For a long time, I hated this match because I just felt it's done a lot of damage to Mick Foley. He's talked about it on his podcast. It's brutal. I don't understand how Rock got so carried away and just continued to level Mick with the chair time and time again. But before they get there, it's a great match. Mick falls off the top of that, like the barricades, through the whole like explosives and everything. It's insane. And I actually like the twist a lot of him saying, I quit. Because when he did it, it was kind of like, I wonder, was he really screaming, I quit? And then, of course, you find out he said it actually during the, Sunday Night Heat, I think it was, and they recorded it and went on it that way. But I think I like this match. Again, it's a controversial choice. I felt like it would have been tough to not include it, but at the same time, it's hard to include it, knowing how much damage kind of went into it.
I think you make a great case for it. It's not on my list, but I do agree. Like I think they have. Rock and Mankind always had good matches with each other, and this is another example of it. The spot that you mentioned was awesome. It goes back to like, what do you consider to be great wrestling? Is it like this in-ring work where you're doing reversals and submissions and high spots and stuff like that, or is it storytelling? And if you love storytelling, I mean, this match tells an incredibly gut-wrenching story where Mick Foley's being beaten and abused in front of his family. And you're right, it's a great twist ending. It's one of those things where when you're watching it live, you don't realize what's going on. And like, yeah, you go back to it. Maybe you don't remember it as fondly, but like at the time when that twist happened, it was very surprising and very creative. Kudos to Russo or whoever was writing it back then for coming up with it. I assume it was Russo, but it was very creative, very clever, and just, yeah, this is such a dramatic match. Maybe they went a little too far with the drama, but it's certainly memorable, and I don't have any problem with it being on their top 10 list.
And I think even on Beyond the Mat, Nick even says he didn't remember The Rock coming to him, but I think in Beyond the Mat, you see The Rock come over. Okay.
Yeah, I think so.
It's interesting. I think it's one of Russo's best. And I know a lot of people think nothing's more depressing than Rumble in 1989. I loved the booking of Rumble 1989. I thought it was fantastic, and I was all set for McMahon and The Rock at WrestleMania 15. So, but.
Well, look, to tell a great story, you have to have moments where the villain feels like they're conquering the hero. You got to have some obstacle for the hero to overcome. So that's part of a great storytelling. And this was the night where things looked darkest for our heroes in the World Wrestling Federation before they finally overcame at WrestleMania.
Yeah.
My number 4 is one you've already mentioned, so I'll just mention it again quickly. You said you didn't know if it should be on there. Well, I've got it even higher than you. I've got Hardys and Dudleys from 2000, that tables match, for all the reasons you mentioned. Things I already said about it. One of my favorite spots in there is where Jeff Hardy is running on the barricade, and I think it's Devon that just like throws a table at him and just knocks Jeff Hardy off the barricade with the table. So many creative spots. Jeff Hardy jumping off that taxi, part of the set there in Madison Square Garden, the whole atmosphere. It's great. Another star-making performance from all 4 of these guys. I think you could trace their Hall of Fame inductions, all the way back to this match and how they established themselves on this night.
It's unbelievable, and it also is just so, being a New Yorker. It's so New York. Like you think about this show, think of like the big 4 for me, the 4 I missed: Mania 10, SummerSlam 98, this show, Rumble 2000, and then Mania 20 are like the 4 big New Yorky type of shows that immediately you think about when you're thinking about New York. And that this show is definitely one of them, and these 4 guys.
For sure.
All right, for me, number 4, match we sort of touched on, and I had thought about maybe not including it, decided to include it. Is going to be Chris Benoit versus Kurt Angle at the Royal Rumble 2003. I think that this match was really great, and it was made even better because it followed Triple H and Scott Steiner, which was such a bad match. And I remember at the time, my grandfather unfortunately was going through some health issues, and unfortunately was on the verge of dying. So my family had to move out to Florida for about a month, and his best friend kept telling us, like, had a thick Southern accent, and he kept saying, like, I know you didn't watch any WCW. We're ordering the Rumble tonight. You're going to be blown away by Scott Steiner. The whole match, he's sitting there like, I really thought he was better than this. I'm so sorry. I thought he was better than this. And like was building about so much. So that
you were blown away. We were all blown away by Scott Steiner on that night.
Exactly. It was brutal. And then Benoit and Angle come out, and they're just, tippy top of the card. And it was interesting because they had so many matches in 2002. It almost felt like when you heard the match was happening, like, do we really got to go back there? Like, we've seen this already a couple of times. But it ends up being an incredible showcase for Benoit, maybe even better, and now I guess even more surreal with the moment at the end where the crowd gives him the standing ovation. Everybody stands up, and they cut away. It's the first time they've ever done it, where they leave, and then they come back. And they had to show him getting this adulation from the crowd, which I thought was really a nice moment for him, and let you know that, okay, maybe we are serious about this guy, and the next year they would really go all the way with him.
It's so funny. WWE has tried to recreate that moment and milk that moment artificially so many times since then, and it was so organic then and so real and so memorable. And it has just never been the same every time they've tried to do it. Have the guy, struggle to stand up and just wait for that, standing ovation from the crowd. And the fans will do it just like out of pity, but it's never been the same as it was with Benoit on that night.
It's like that clip you see of John Cena where he's sitting in the turnbuckle and he's sitting down looking sad and he's looking back. I don't know where it's from, but like that is totally them trying to get the crowd. Woo!
Yeah.
Look on, and like just doesn't happen.
Yep. And I feel like that moment, especially in this whole match, is what really solidified them with thinking, okay, I think we could make Benoit a champion one day. And it really put him on that level. It could be top 3, top 1 for me. Again, like I've said, I've said on here before, like I just can't do it. I can't put him in there. I don't have any problem with you doing it or anybody else. That's just my personal choice. But it's just looking at the match itself. Oh my God, they're just pure in-ring work. It doesn't get any better than that. The complete opposite of your Rock and Mankind pick, two totally ends of the spectrum about why we love wrestling here are those two matches. And this is just a textbook example of that.
100%. Yeah. And I think for me, I had given up on the Benoit matches for a long time. It was just too weird to watch. Living through that period was really difficult. I think what happened was around when I started this channel in 2018, 2019, I had done the 15 years look back at WrestleMania 20. And it's my first time going back and watching that stuff. And it was completely different. Like I was like, it was so weird seeing Benoit again. And now I don't know if I certainly haven't accepted what he's done. It's absolutely awful. I can't imagine. Yeah, but I feel like it's almost like I've been able to somehow move it around and not allow it to be something that won't allow me to at least watch some of his matches, even though it is still not the same. Like this definitely would be number 1 for me, I think. I'm number 2 if the whole tragedy didn't happen.
Yeah, and everybody views it different and looks at it different, and that's fine. That's where we come together as wrestling fans, agree to disagree on those things. But it, as a match itself, it deserves to be on there. All right, top 3, the nitty gritty here.
I wonder if we have the same 3.
See, I feel like we have to. Or we're like way off on one of these. But it'll be interesting to see where we rank them here. Number 3 for me is going to be 2017 for the WWE Championship. John Cena wins it all for the 16th time, ties Ric Flair's record against the phenomenal one, AJ Styles. Just a beautiful piece of storytelling here. AJ Styles is the heel. He's a year after he debuted, and he's already in the main event world title match with Cena. Like
crazy.
You would have never believed that if someone told you that watching TNA, and as a huge AJ Styles fan, always have been. I remember when he was on WCW on Nitro for 2 weeks. I remember watching it. I was like, this kid's really talented. I never would have believed this guy would be in there, but he brings it. He belongs in there with Cena, and there's so many great near falls. Cena, like you said, in 2007, when he was there at that time, he never disappointed, and he really didn't. Big Match John, he brought it in this match, and it's a great moment to see him tie the record. Probably going to be his final world title reign. They could always surprise us, but it feels like if they were going to have him break Flair's record, it would have happened by now. So it feels like this was it, him tying the record here. Pretty awesome moment, pretty awesome match.
It really is. It's also my number 3.
Okay, all right.
I had it right there. I think it's I think when I watched it initially, I was because I loved AJ Styles' reign, and so I think the first time I watched it, I was just edge on my seat. Please don't take this title off AJ Styles. Like he's having such a great reign. We don't want to go back to Cena. We're moving forward. And then he goes back to Cena, but Cena only has the belt for 2 weeks on this reign. He's talking about how this is going to be the time is now era. 2 weeks later, he loses the belt to Wyatt in the which is almost like I didn't even realize it until I was going back and watching some of the time from that period, and I'm like, wow, he loses it so quick. But it's a really strong match. And one of the things that I think Travis may have actually said on one of your guys' shows about it is they very barely go out of the ring throughout the entire match. They have a really compelling match without involving tables, without involving everything else. It's just straight up like great wrestling back and forth. And I was at the Cena AJ match, the second one they had, I think, maybe the first, at SummerSlam 2016, where Cena hit the AA off the top and AJ kicked out. And that was the first time I think anyone's ever kicked out of that. And when it happened, the crowd just erupted. So I always thought they had such great matches. But this one, especially if you then now watch it back later on, I think you even grow a better appreciation for it. And you're right. I mean, it's iconic. It's 16. I thought for sure, I went to Las Vegas for it. I thought for sure Cena was going to beat Roman and get 17 at that in 2021. But it ended up not happening. And I agree. I don't think I'll ever get another one, unfortunately.
Yeah, I don't know. It feels like the time has passed for that, but we'll always have this moment. So many great near falls, reversals, counters. Man, it's a perfect. It's 5 stars in my opinion. But my next 3 are 5 stars in my opinion, and you can't convince me otherwise.
Absolutely, no. This is it's such great stuff. And this one here, you have this match, you have the Roman and Kevin Owens match, and then you've got a Rumble with like loads of stars. Everyone from Goldberg to Lesnar to Undertaker. Such a great Royal Rumble event.
Yeah, 100%. Very fun. That's in the Alamo Dome, so it's a huge, epic crowd. The long entryway, it's great. All right, top 2. My number 2. We'll see if we continue to match up on this one. I've got John Cena here again, and going back a couple years to 2015, another WWE Championship match. This is a triple threat with John Cena, Brock Lesnar, and Seth Rollins. I think they caught me off guard with this one. I don't know if I was just hyped. I don't know if I didn't love the storyline or just didn't love the match on paper, but they just blew me away. Everybody came to play. Everybody came to have fun. So much great creativity, near falls and spots. Really a coming out party for Seth. He'd done the Shield, obviously, and he had joined the Authority. He was the Authority's top guy, but this was him really being thrust into with the big boys, with Brock and Cena here, sink or swim, and he swam, and that's why he's still got the belt to this day because of this night.
Absolutely, it is my number 2 as well. So fear on these. It is. I know you thought maybe I'd go back to 2004, Bob Holly and Brock Lesnar, but no, I went with this match. And it's funny, I watched this one back last night to the wee hours in the morning. My son woke me up at 2 o'clock in the morning. I knew I'd have an hour. So I was like, I got to watch this match, and I got to watch my number 1. I got to make sure I'm getting it right. And I went with this match. It is one of the most insane nights for WWE. I got to do a video at some point on the 24-hour period between Royal Rumble 2015 and Raw the next night, because obviously that night Roman wins. Rock comes back to help Roman win. The crowd boos him out of the building. Yeah. Like, they are just the most angry they've ever been. And the next night, everyone's ready to go to Raw, myself included, who's going to make the trip to Connecticut to go down, boo Roman out of the building.
Oh, no way.
Cancel WWE Network is trending on Twitter. And what happens the next day? Raw gets snowed out. They do the show from the network studios or from Stamford, Connecticut. And WWE announces that they've hit 1 million subscribers on the WWE Network. But in the midst of all of that, you have this incredible 3-way match. And I completely agree. I think it was one of these deals where it feels like they added Seth just to give you an extra element between John Cena and Brock, and he completely steals the show. I think this is the night where they went, oh man, maybe we could actually go with this guy.
Yes.
And maybe that's why they decided to add him to that Mania main event and give him the title.
I think so. Absolutely. We talked about that with so many matches on here with guys with something to prove on there and wanting to establish themselves. And Seth is the perfect example of that. Man, I forgot about all of that happening within that 24-hour time period. Honestly, maybe that snowstorm was the best thing that ever happened for the Roman Brock feud because of how hated and how heated the crowd was. And you knew they were going to boo Roman out of the building that night. And it was probably a good thing to give the crowd a week's time to process that, and maybe the reaction was a little bit better the next week on Raw.
Well, it's funny because the next day we were like, oh, we've got to go down to Hartford. Oh, we're gonna boo Roman, like anyone cares about us. And my wife, my girlfriend at the time, she was like, well, let's just see, because my job canceled because of this huge snowstorm. She's like, it's supposed to be a big storm, and I was like, oh, show must go on, pal. They never canceled Raw for anything. And then lo and behold, the one night they cancel Raw and do these really good backstage type of promos throughout the show. And they both the triple threat and the Rumble match. And I think that calmed everyone down and went, okay, maybe this isn't going to be so terrible. So that by the time they went and they continued on with programming, no longer was there so much heat on them.
Nothing funnier to me in wrestling than The Rock's confused face when everyone's booing him as he's holding up Roman's hand. One of the funniest moments in pro wrestling history.
It's almost like they told him, oh, Rock, people love this. They're going to just love it. And Rock comes out, he's like, what is going on?
He had no idea.
It is the craziest thing. And really, yeah, so much fun for sure.
Real quick, Matt Cardona on his podcast, he recently told a story about this night. I guess he made a return on this night in the 15 Royal Rumble. He'd been out for a while, so he came back in this Rumble and got a great reaction. So he came back through the curtain. He was like, all right, yes, they're going to do something with me. I know it. They have to use me on Raw tomorrow. Everyone heard that crowd. Everyone heard that pop. And then, of course, a snowstorm happened. And whatever momentum he had is thrown out the window. It's not seen on Raw again.
Oh, I think so. He's in the Rumble?
He's in the Rumble. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Very cool. That's also, they had Bubba Ray return at that Rumble. So that Rumble was on the right track.
Yeah. Yeah.
They stupidly said they brought Daniel Bryan back, and then they had him unceremoniously dumped in the middle of the match.
And that's where Big Show and Kane are just dumping everybody. And, oh my God, it's just brutal.
It was so bad. And then it comes down to Rusev and Roman.
Yeah.
Crowds cheered for Rusev.
Cheered for Rusev. It was Rusev Day.
You're right. Everybody was into just anyone but Roman at that point.
All right. Do you want to do honorable mentions first, or do you want to go ahead and go to number one?
No, I'll do some honorable mentions. I think that's definitely good. I had mentioned a few of them. I think for me, a lot of them were the ones I grew up with. I always Rockers versus Orient Express at Royal
Yes.
Rumble. Fun. Such a good match. And I thought for sure when we first came up with this idea, I thought that was definitely going to be on my countdown. And then it just, by the time I got there, when I went back, I was like, it's good, but is it as good as some of these other matches from 20 years later? No, but who's to say it is going to be as good as those matches from 20 years later? So, that one, I think, did you want to say one that you thought of?
That's a great pick. I had it on my short list for sure. Let me throw you all the way back to 1988 to the very first Royal Rumble card. I watched this back too. Jumping Bomb Angels versus the Glamour Girls for the Women's WWF Tag Team Championship. It doesn't hold up in the top 10, but for 1988, these women went out and killed it. The Jumping Bomb Angels, these two Japanese women's wrestlers. I don't even know their name. Vince and Jesse don't know their names either. It's a running joke between the two of them. Yeah. They're the champions and they don't know their names. But they're hitting German suplexes, moonsaults, drop kicks off the top row. It's a really cool match. It doesn't hold up against Asuka and Becky, but for the time, people should check that out.
That is a good shout. I've heard some. I remember when I first because I got the Rumble anthology. Remember they had the big box set? And
for sure.
Rumble 88. You couldn't really see it anywhere. It wasn't around. I didn't even know there was a Rumble 88 that existed. So remember that was the first one I watched, and that is a really good match. It's a good call. I think Rumble 93. Shawn Michaels versus Natty is a really good match, as well as Bret Hart versus Razor Ramon. They got a couple of good ones on there. I think the Jannetty and Michaels match in particular really shows what it could have been for those two guys. It's a shame that Marty just, couldn't make it work out, because I think that both of them could have been big time players in WWE had Marty allowed it to be, if that makes sense.
Yep. I had Bret Razor as a possibility for me. I want to mention another match from 2002 that you mentioned, the world title match. How about a match between two former Royal Rumble winners, two former WWE champions? I'm talking, of course, about Vince McMahon versus Ric Flair in a street fight. Really fun match. Really fun storytelling between those guys. Some great spots and moments in there. I always really liked that match.
That is a great one, and it's he actually they fight right in front of Flair's family. I'm pretty sure Charlotte's there, Megan's there,
and Reed is there. Yeah,
Reed I think might be there.
Yep.
And they even do they take pictures of Vince McMahon and they show him on the Titantron a little while later. O2 is really a great, I think it's a fantastic show as well.
I agree, it's underrated.
For me, I also threw in I always like the main event of Royal Rumble 1997.
Yes.
The Shawn Michaels flu game. Shawn Michaels against Sid. That's a fantastic match and a nice storybook ending to their match from Survivor Series 96, which usually gets a lot of the love because the crowd turns on HBK. But I like the crowd then come back to him at Royal Rumble as well.
Great crowd reaction there. That one was right on the verge. If I had a top 11, that was probably going to be on there for me, just for the crowd alone. And do you think it was a shoot? Do you think he really had the flu, or was that just like sympathy?
You never know with him.
I don't know.
But I mean, he always says that he had the flu.
He has said that.
Yeah, but you're right. I don't know. It's a tough one to kind of navigate through.
Yeah.
Yeah. But he might have. I mean, we'll take him at his word, I guess. But it is. I think it's a solid match, though, and that actually ends the show, doesn't it? Doesn't it go on last? Yeah. I think it's the first time the Rumble doesn't go on last.
Yeah, if it's not the first, it's one of the first. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, maybe 96, but
that's true. Yeah, Brett and Taker goes on last that night because Diesel gets eliminated from the Rumble last by Shawn, and then Diesel and Undertaker brush past each other in the entryway.
Right.
Some in the ring, and then Diesel interferes in that match, which is why that match did not make my list because of the screwy finish. Brett and Undertaker, really solid match, especially for the time period. But it's like 30 minutes of awesomeness, and then Diesel runs in for a DQ. It's like, dang it.
Well,
give me a finish.
On my list that I took off the list was the main event of Royal Rumble 95,
mm-hmm.
Bret Hart versus Diesel, where you have Shawn run in. And Earl Hebner's like, no, we're going to keep the match going. I don't know who made Earl Hebner the authority figure this night, but he lets the match continue. It's a great match. And it's a really nicely done match in terms of how to book a strong babyface versus a strong babyface. Both guys look great in the match. Diesel is one of Diesel's first, really strong matches as champion. Maybe his only one. But then,
maybe.
Yeah, his match with Shawn at Mania 11 is okay.
It's pretty good.
But then Owen comes in. And again, Earl's like, no, we're going to let it continue. And then everybody comes in, and Earl's finally like, no, we got to call it off. And I'm like, what are you doing? Why would you? It makes no sense.
No.
So.
Yeah, Brett Diesel had great chemistry. I mean, they always brought it out of each other. So, yeah, I had that one too. All right. You want to talk about it? Talk about number one?
Number one, sure. Yep, I'll mention it here. Number one for me, Royal Rumble 2000, it is going to be Cactus Jack versus Triple H in the street fight. It's a match that I went back and watched it again. It's brutal. It's one of these things where you hear about all this horror stories from WrestleMania 1999, Royal Rumble 99, and then you watch Royal Rumble 2000. It's like Mick didn't let up at all after that match. He's in there getting creamed. But it's such a good match. I think Mick's in the best shape of his life. They're going at it, and I really think that this performance and then the performance they put on at the next month at No Way Out is what got Mick Foley the WrestleMania main event, and well deserved. It's such a good match, and I really give them a lot of credit for really going out there and there's even this one part during, I think Stephanie's brand new into her role as a heel, only been a heel now for a month. And she has some facial expressions that are just perfect. She comes out there, she looks absolutely horrified, probably because she was absolutely horrified. There's also this spot where they move these wooden pallets, and Hunter falls. He flips them out. He does back body drop. Hunter's leg gets cut on one of them, and it's how, if they had that plan, did they not make sure the wooden pallets weren't in pristine condition? You even see him when Mick's moving the stuff. It looks like flimsy, crabby, splintering off wooden things. And that looks like a scary. Even Hunter looks at it for a second damn. It's really good. It holds up to this day. It's such a good match. And it's one of these things where Hunter had established the pedigree as such an important move at this stage that when he goes up and hits the pedigree, he then is able to then kind of looks over at Mick and goes for the cover. Mick kicks out, and the crowd is like, whoa, nobody kicks out of the pedigree. And for a brief period, there's a Foley, and then Mick It gets another pedigree, crazy son of a gun, face first into the thumbtacks, and that's a perfect ending to the match. But I thought it was it's amazing, and still, in my opinion, the best match at Rumble history.
Well, I actually went a little bit differently. I went with Greg the Hammer Valentine and Rugged Ronnie Garvin from Royal Rumble 1990. You know, the Hammer Jammer storyline. It just sold me so well. No, of course.
What are you thinking, the faces, Adam, and everything?
Yeah. No, of course. Triple H Cactus Jack to Royal Rumble 2000. It's the number one. You could make a case for any of our top three. I wouldn't argue with you if someone told me one of those other three were their number one. But yeah, just again, going back to the storytelling, you got the amazing promo a couple of weeks before this where, you know, Cactus Mankind is taking off his shirt and his tie and reveals the Cactus Jack shirt, and Triple H just sells it like the biggest, you know, shock in the world to him. That just Triple H's selling of that t-shirt is what made this match be what it could be and made people believe in Cactus Jack. So brilliantly done. Cactus Jack makes Triple H a star here. You know, we forget that, you know, Triple H, they'd given him the world title already, but he just didn't feel like he was getting over that hump to really be the established main eventer. Well, Cactus Jack lifts him up and carries him over that hump on this night, you know, makes him into the game, into the Cerebral Assassin on this night. Just a brutal match for the time, for any time, with the barbed wire and the tacks and all that stuff. It's fantastic. It holds up to this day. You could put it on pay-per-view to this day and it would still be a great match.
There's even that moment where Mick is like, come on, you coward. Hit me with the chair. He's got his arms, you know, he's in the handcuffs and he's literally got tears coming out of his hand. And you're like, isn't there someone back there who gives a crap? And who comes out to help him but his old buddy, The Rock, comes out, levels Hunter with the chair, and it's like, thank God. And then they end up continuing the match. But I was laughing because you're right. Like, can you imagine if Mick takes off the shirt and Hunter instead responds like he did when Goldust had Tourette's? And he just like, it burst out laughing. It would kill the whole thing. Like if he was like, you're the same dude. Are you kidding me? Like that would just be it. But instead it was like he knew, oh man, business is about to pick up. It's on now.
Yep, absolutely. And I love that you mentioned the handcuffs, you know, playing into it was just a year before that, the 99 Rumble. Yeah. So playing into that history, that was a really smart move in there. Really great way to garner some more sympathy and some more heat in that match. It's an all-time classic, one of the best WWE matches of all time.
Yeah, no, it's great. And again, it kind of harkens back to that. Like to me, that even though it's not my super childhood, it's like on my pre-teeny type stage. I think it's like, I think back to that. I think back to Hardy's Dudley's. I think back to a couple different pieces of like Jericho and Benoit in the ladder matches. Like those matches were such a big part of myself growing up and being at WWF New York and seeing those matches time and time again. Like it just like, it felt like it was sort of a vibe in a way. And so definitely gets me excited even thinking about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. So yeah, we're at top three. We're all the same. And then we had two other ones that were the same in there, right? We had Cena and Umaga, and then we had Hardy's and Dudley's. We both had those. So we had five similar, and the top three all the same. Okay.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's interesting. We do have some feedback I'll get into as well. Just a couple of pieces here. Good brother Adam Toby from right here in Queens, New York. Which Adam asked me to do the Mick Foley thing, and I told him with my Bell's palsy, I'll do the best I could to give him a big smile.
You got
it. He had mentioned that his favorite Royal Rumble match of all time is the Royal Rumble 2011 Edge versus Dolph Ziggler for the world title. Adam and I went to this show together with our friend James in Boston, and he said that this is the match that he felt was one of the last good defining moments of Edge's initial run for his match with Dolph, and that's why he loves it and thinks it stands up to this date. Also like the use of the spear. Personally, I liked the use of the spear because I thought, oh man, I wonder if this means they'll take the belt off Edge and give it to Dolph, thinking like they wouldn't do that. And they actually did do that.
They did.
A way green Dolph Ziggler, but it was like, that's what they should have done. It made sense.
Yeah.
And my buddy Steve kind of harkened to what we said. First thing he thinks about when he thinks about non-Rumble matches is Rumble 2000, both the tables match between the Hardys and Dudleys and the match between Cactus Jack and Triple H. And I did tell my friend James as well. He said if you were going to call Toby Good Brother Toby, he'd have to be referred to as Better Brother James. His favorite non-Rumble match when I asked him was he didn't actually remember. He didn't know there were any other matches on the Rumble pay-per-views other than the Rumbles. And his point in
Come
saying
on.
that he feels like there's been some good ones, but he thinks a lot of the times those matches are either non-finishes or the champion retains because they're getting ready for the Royal Rumble. But he and I did make the trip down to Atlanta, and I did mention the Piggy James, Mickey James versus Michelle McCool, how horrible that match was. But yeah. So
yeah, we could do a bottom 10 list.
Yeah.
I think we could. I could pick some.
Mickey James was pretty brutal. Like they suddenly decided Mickey James was overweight. It made absolutely no sense whatsoever.
Brutal. Well, I asked my Talking Taker co-host Travis for his. He said off the top of his head, Dudley Boys, Hardy Boys from 2000, Cactus Jack, Triple H from 2000, Benoit Angle from 2003, Edge Ziggler from 2011, so he liked that one as well. Diesel Brett from 95, Jericho Benoit ladder match, and then Cena Umaga last man standing match. So yeah, we had all of those on our lists at some point except for Edge Ziggler, which was top that would be in my top 15, I think.
Yeah.
I watched it back, didn't quite get over the hump for me, but it's really good for sure.
Well, I did not realize there was any sort of follow-up with Kelly Kelly. I've got to go and watch 2011 WWE now to see this, because when she came out, it took me out of it. I was like, why is Kelly Kelly out there? Like,
yeah, she had a feud going with Vicky and Dolph and all that.
There you go. But it's interesting that I thought for sure the Hardys and Dudleys was going to be like this completely outside the box choice, and everybody loves it. So.
I think it's pretty established. I think people love that one. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's very good, and this was great. Certainly thank you for coming on and chatting it up, and I know we have some other fun ideas in the pipeline, so to speak. I know hopefully we'll be able to connect with our friend Randy and have him come on and maybe do look back at the WrestleMania 23, I guess it was 2007.
Yeah, Detroit. Yeah.
And then you were at Backlash 2007.
Yeah, we'll double up on that.
Continue that because we also on this channel have done SummerSlam 07, which I was at. So we continue our look back at quite the year at WWE there.
Yeah, I'll be happy to do it. Backlash 07 was a fun. We'll get Travis on here and we'll share our memories being there live. Underrated pay-per-view, I think. People sleep on that one. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great. I mean, you have a 4-way match there that's incredible in the main event, and then you also have a last man standing between Undertaker and Batista. So that's a really good pay-per-view as well.
And you have Vincent Shane versus Bobby Lashley in a handicap match. So
wow, there you go.
Also that.
That's good. But no, this was great. I appreciate that the Royal Rumble's always willing to try some things a little outside the box. I always feel like it's a good chance for some folks, whether it's Jeff Hardy getting his first title match, or maybe things that even don't work out, like Bob Holly getting a title match. It's always fun at the Rumble to kind of see these things, and this is a good idea for me, because I think, like to my buddy James's point, sometimes you're sitting there at the Rumble, you watch these matches, and you're just like, let's get to the Rumble, and you don't further really appreciate the matches that as they're taking place. So thanks for joining, Alex. And if no one's done it, Alex and I both have a vlog up on our YouTube channels. Alex has one up on the Talking Taker channel of the entire SummerSlam weekend that we had together, and I have it spread out over several days because that's how I roll. I'm a more is more guy, so I have each one of the days up there. So highly encourage everyone to go check those out when you get a chance.
Different stuff in both of them, so you get the full experience there of that whole week. A lot of fun, a lot of stuff outside of just wrestling in there. Really enjoyed filming those, and enjoyed the whole trip. We'll have to try to do it again sometime. One last question: Do you think anything on the 2024 Royal Rumble has a chance to crack into the top 10 for you?
For the non-Rumble matches?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know why I'm not feeling the 4-way so much. I feel like I think we've gotten to a point with Roman where it's just how is he really going to lose the belt, And so I think that, to me, I don't know if he's going to lose the belt anytime soon. It'd be great if he did. Like, if he just came out and lost, it'd be fantastic. But I just don't think it's going to. I think right now the only other thing announced is KO and Logan, which should be great, but I know KO is kind of working through an injury. How about you?
Yeah, not on paper. I don't think they will, but that fatal four-way could surprise us. We just said we didn't have the highest hopes for that Seth, Brock, and Cena match, and it's our number 2. So yeah. Who knows? Maybe LA Knight will just have the performance of his career in the ring, and have a 5-star match. Who knows?
Who do you have Royal Rumble winners for the next couple of them that are coming up?
Yeah, I was actually thinking about that because I feel like I don't know. I feel like it's wide open because, are they going to go with Cody again? Will they give us a 2-time winner that we haven't seen since the days of Stone Cold Steve Austin? Would they do that with Cody? Are they going to go with somebody that'll face Seth? And I don't know who's going to face Seth at WrestleMania. Is Jinder Mahal going to come out of nowhere and win the Royal Rumble?
They just go with the hot hand here and just say screw it. And after month and month of me hoping that they finally someone a chance, they give it to Jinder of all people.
Oh God, we would hear you screaming all the way from New York. And to be honest, I haven't been following enough. I don't know what's going on with the women's division, so I really don't know who's in the running for that one. But I don't know. I personally, as someone who doesn't pay attention too much, I really don't have a read on who's going to win either of them.
I'm thinking for the men, I think it's going to be Punk. I do think there's an outside.
Yeah. True. Yeah.
I think it could be Punk. I think it could be an outside chance The Rock comes in there and wins it. And that's when he comes back. He's number 30. And, that's how they get to Roman versus Rock. For the woman, I think the Charlotte injury kind of threw everything for a loop. She's out for the next 9 months. And so I think it's wide open there. I could actually see them giving it to Jade Cargill on a debut, her winning from AEW. Someone completely out of left field there. I don't think she's ready for that, but I don't know. Maybe it could be.
Yeah, they were treating her like a star there for a while and then, haven't done anything. So maybe they stopped showing her to give her that big surprise. But I don't know why Punk totally slipped my mind. That seems like the other obvious choice there to win.
I think it could be Punk. It's Punk or Cody, I think, is probably the way you go. And personally, I love to see Gunther win it too. Came to the final 2 last year. Came in there. Will you watch the Rumble live?
Yeah, no, for sure. I'll definitely watch it.
Yeah, I think it's the one event that even the lapsed fans, so to speak, of the everyday product.
Got to watch Rumble, got to watch Mania, no doubt. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Alex, do you guys have anything coming up that you want to promote here on your next edition of Talking Taker?
Sure. I just want to encourage everybody, if you're listening to this or watching this on the Watchalong Wrestling channel, to go over there and subscribe to the Talking Taker YouTube channel as well. Follow us on Spotify or Apple Podcast. You follow us on social media at Talking Taker as well. We will have our February episode out. We got new episodes at least once a month. We always have one episode a month. Sometimes we throw in some bonus episodes in there, but you can count on a new episode on the 1st of every month. February, we're going to be going back to some Coliseum home videos, some Coliseum classics of The Undertaker. They are available on Peacock, the home video classics section. You can check our social media. I'll throw the list out of I think we've got 7 of those matches that we're going to watch and talk about on the latest Talking Taker, featuring the Undertaker against the likes of the Berserker and the Mountie and Sid Justice. Wow. And some deep cuts and a really cool tag team match between the Undertaker and Jake the Snake versus Hacksaw Jim Duggan and the Macho Man. So a very rare Undertaker Macho Man in ring encounter.
Very cool. Very cool. Always fun listening to your guys' shows. Had some time here and being on paternity leave, and I have been able to actually do a couple of the watch-alongs that you guys have done, and those are always a lot of fun. I'm a watch-along guy, obviously, so
of course,
be cool. So, but thanks again, Alex, for joining us, and
thank you. My pleasure.
Till soon.
Absolutely.